SheGone! Former Major Leaguer Jeff Frye is in the house, and Diamond Diehards is on! Joe Rizzo here bringing you baseball along with the dog, Jeff Healy, and Frito, Jeff Frye, our Major League buddy, making his second appearance in just over a year's time. It was maybe too long that we waited, but now, well, what do we have? We have a baseball lockout, and we have threats still coming at the game at the grassroots level, and we are going to cover all of it with SheGone Nation's own and Frito Army's own and SaveTheGameUS.com's own Jeff Frye. Will excuse the fact that he played for the Red Sox, which is hard for the Yankee fan to take, but nonetheless, we'll deal with that. We started out, as always, with Veteran of the Day with the dog. We'll bring him in just a moment, but we'll cover the topics that you want to hear about, the mission of SheGone Nation, Frito's Army, SaveTheGameUS.com. We'll talk about your favorite characters, Teacherman and Tragic Ron, who seem to come up every week, about them versus your parents' dollars as far as baseball development is concerned. Of course, there's the MLB lockout. We'll get the ex-players' insight and the best and worst case scenarios in his opinion of the lockout. Rob Manfred, do we blame him for everything? Who would be a great commissioner? We'll cover that. Where does baseball go from here? And we'll talk a little bit about what Frito's doing behind the scenes, and then if we have time at the end, we'll close it out with Die Hard Dads, optional. But in the meantime, we kick it off. And during our wartime, I think the dog will join us for Veteran of the Day with another special vet from the Ukraine-Russia war. Dog?
All right, thanks, Riz, and welcome, Jeff. Really looking forward to it. We always have a blast with Jeff on, so this will be a lot of fun. For Veteran of the Day, yeah, again, we're going with ones that are real time, unfortunately. So in this case, we are highlighting Ukrainian Marine engineer Vitaly Skakun, who, when the Russian forces were advancing, I believe, out of Crimea, if I remember correctly, coming up into the south of Ukraine. This 25-year-old was out, and they were trying to set up a bridge to blow so that the Russian armor and everything couldn't advance across it and into the country. They were coming too quick, so they weren't able to set it up and light the fuse and run away. So basically, the 25-year-old said, "I got it." So, and let the rest of his battalion fall back, and he volunteered to be at the rear guard, and in doing so, wound up blowing up the bridge, significantly slowing down the Russian forces, which again just captured their first city, which I think was right on the other side of this bridge. After 8 days, when they probably should have taken it in 8 hours. So this guy really, he saved his country for a week down in that area. So one of the first nationwide heroes of Ukraine's struggle, and it really helped inspire the rest of the Ukrainian army and navy as well. The Ukrainian President Zelensky posthumously awarded Skakun the title of Hero of Ukraine on Friday, and he was an inspiration to the rest of his country. So again, our Veteran of the Day is Ukrainian Marine engineer Vitaly Skakun, hero of the bridge in southern Ukraine.
All right, dog. Great way to start it out, Frito. Thanks for joining us. We got the Twitter handle on there for those watching. We got the hashtags and the new one, the Save the Game US.com project that you're working on. Most importantly, thanks as always for being so available to us, not just on social media, but outside of all that. And I know you're constantly fighting this battle to make our great game better, because we see the cracks in it. It's obvious at the major league level, and you talk about that, but you also look to attack this from the grassroots level. So let's just start out with the mission statement for SheGone Nation, Frito's Army, and Save the Game US.
Well, thanks for having me, fellas. I always enjoy being on your show. But yeah, the Save the Game. I mean, the SheGone Nation. The the mission statement, I don't really have, a mission statement, but the idea is that I'm trying to educate parents um, to a lot of the teaching that's out there for kids that I think is going to hurt their development. And there's a lot of people out there with zero expertise in how to teach hitting that are out there making a lot of money at parents' expense, and I believe hurting their kids more than helping them. And that's really how the SheGone Nation came about. It's there's a lot of other factors in SheGone Nation. We talk about the state of the game today, which we all agree is not good, and we talk about the commissioner of the game, who's obviously, in my mind, hasn't done one right thing since he's been commissioner. And then also that's where the save the game has come in. We're trying to get a bunch of signatures to go to Major League Baseball, and not adversarially, but go and try and work with them and let them know that the game that we know and love is not the same, and that fans are going away, and we want to give them advice on how to improve it and get the fans back.
It's not an easy task. Like you would think that somebody with with a footprint as big as yours, with access to a zillion different players and ex players and players on the come, that you'd be able to get the word out and that people would just jump in and sign the petition, right? But it's a lot harder than you think when you're working this stuff online in 2022, isn't it?
It is. It really. I would think it'd be a lot easier. I kind of learned the hard way. I did some stuff on YouTube earlier where I do a video and put a link on YouTube. I mean, on Twitter, and nobody would look at it. But then I'd post a video on Twitter, and I'd get 100,000 people looking at it. I never understood why that was, but that's kind of been part of the struggle with the Save the Game. Is for whatever reason on Twitter, which is my main platform, people don't want to take the time to click on a link and go do something that, in my mind, is going to help the game. And hopefully, with your guys' help, we can, spread the word that, we're not making any money off of this. We're just trying to save the game that we love.
Saving the game starts at the lower levels. And what we've seen infiltrate from the lower levels and into the major leagues now is a precipitous drop in batting average, which leads to a whole different view of how the game is played from an analytical standpoint, from an execution standpoint, and also from the standpoint of how organizations are evaluating players and having their players taught um, once they get to the organization, from the low levels all the way up to the through the high levels. And this has been going on for quite some time. Q, for those watching, your T-shirt. Let's see it. What does it say? For those who are not watching, it says batting average matters, but it has AVG with the period. It's got the abbreviation. Um, how big of a problem is this? Why do the the let's call we can call them the nerds, right? Why do they feel like it's more important to the game now to try to hit home runs and take walks and hit balls over the shift instead of just bunting down third or down first or whatever? Like how did we get here, Jeff? How did we get here?
I believe that the nerds speak the owner's language. So most of the nerds that went to the Ivy League schools and are now in baseball, obviously they're very smart people, and a lot of these owners are billionaires, or all of them are billionaires, and they obviously didn't become billionaires because they're stupid. They're good businessmen. So the nerds speak their language, where an old gruff 40-year-old minor league coach, who maybe doesn't have the best vocabulary and is not well spoken, doesn't can't the owners can't relate to this guy, even though this guy knows more through his life experience than all these nerds put together. And I think that's the problem, is that we've got rid of so many good baseball men in the game, but now we have the nerds in there with their algorithms and all their formulas telling us the right way to play the game and how to score runs, and what's going to give us the best opportunity to win games. And the thing is, it's over a 162 game season. If we do this, we have the best chance to win. Well, you play one game at a time. This game, we don't necessarily have to use the same strategy as tomorrow's game. We got to win this game no matter what the situation. We have to find a way to win this game. And then tomorrow we'll worry about winning the next game. And I think we've gotten away from that. Just play the game the way it's presented to you that certain night and try to win that game, move on to the next. And it's not just over a 6-month season. If we continue to swing for the fences, we're going to win this many games.
Dawg, at your level where you have, your son still at the, the U13 type level, how much does the stuff that Jeff talks about resonate with you?
Oh, very much so. And we're actually blessed that one of his coaches is actually a former minor leaguer. And all the coaching staff around it, we've been very, very fortunate in our area that they're all very much focused on fundamentals and stuff like that. And it's not shift, it's not launch angle, anything else like that. It's all the old school fundamentals, the same stuff that Jeff was taught and Jeff executed obviously throughout his career and stuff like that. So we've been very, very lucky. But I do hear other guys who go off and especially like the club teams and so forth. And I think that's where you really start to get into it. Is that's where that those teachings start to filter in, right? Because they're trying to optimize to get the kids recruited, to get the kids into the D1 programs, et cetera, things like that. And to get a little bit of success like that, random luck or just whatever, and then all of a sudden that's the new way, right? And then it starts to percolate through, and it's just it just destroys the game, in my opinion. So yeah, it's terrible. And just maybe to kind of come back to what Jeff was saying earlier, I mean, I think like in terms of nerds and stuff, I do a lot of statistical stuff at work and stuff, and I sort of say like it's the analytical guys go and try and optimize, basically like acting like everyone's their own widget, and everyone's going to act the same way every time. If you do this, if you run this Excel 162 times, it's going to spit out this, which totally doesn't get the fact that it's a contest, right? I mean, your enemy is not going to do the exact same thing each time as you're going out there. They're going to try and optimize against whatever you do, right? So they're going to play. So again, they're going to shift, like Jeff said, like they're going to do a shift. So then you need to make a counter move, and that's where I think analytics, for whatever reason, it's not that complicated, but it feels to me like they just haven't crossed that over yet, where they don't realize that, oh yeah, by the way, if you change that now because you've changed the situation, you've changed the environment, right? So all of a sudden, all your previous analytics go out the window, right? And now how do you optimize against that? And for whatever reason, they haven't seemed to have picked up on that. And it feels like eventually someone's going to do that. It makes too much, like, you guys point out all the time. If you could hit 400 hitting against the shift all the way, you're going to get guys to do that. It will make sense. It'll be the value play to generate it. But for whatever reason, it just hasn't come through in MLB yet.
Well, what would, like we were talking about Tony Gwynn before, right? What would Tony Gwynn hit? Like, would they actually try to shift him today, Jeff?
I don't think so. I don't think he could. And I think you see the players that do use the whole field don't get shifted as much. Mm-hmm. And you see there's still guys out there that are having great years. Look at Juan Soto, Mookie Betts, Mike Trout. It don't matter how you shift Mike Trout, he's still going to put up his numbers. And these are the superstars of the game, obviously. But you've got other guys that are maybe the middle tier or just below the superstars that could be superstars, in my opinion, if they would just make a few adjustments along the way. And I don't know if it's because they're being told not to. It's hard for me to believe that a professional baseball player would listen to somebody he knows never played past Little League and come up with that strategy to how to be successful. And why would you believe this guy? Because he says, we've run all the numbers and this is what the numbers say. So, hey, Joey Gallo, just keep swinging for the fences and hit 198 again and strike out 217 times. As long as you hit 41 homers, you're going to be a productive player. Well, Joey Gallo is one of the most in my mind, one of the best athletes in Major League Baseball. This guy's 6'4", can run, has a cannon for an arm, and hit the ball as far as anybody. And in 6 years, his batting average is like 205. I mean, he should hit 250 with his eyes closed if he would just take advantage of what's given to him and stop listening to what apparently is being told to him. And I just wish more players would be accountable, and just say, or step up and say, listen, I'm not doing this crap. I want to help my team win baseball games, and I'm not worried about, your algorithms, and I know how to play this game.
There are parents out there, Frito, that are watching or listening, and they're running into these snake oil salesmen, we'll call them. And the characters, if you follow Jeff on Twitter, which you must, by the way, if you don't, then literally stop what you're doing right now. At O the letter 3 the number J Frye, JFRYE on Twitter. You gotta follow him. And the characters of the day that are Teacherman and Tragic Ron, who now Tragic Ron has made it to 3 shows in a row. We talk about Tragic Ron more than Teacherman, but so basically, you're a parent and you're in a position where you want your kid to succeed, right? Like our generation here, they can call us boomers, whatever. We're not quite, we're not quite as old as boomers. We're Gen Xers, but whatever. Um, we put our kids, we try to put them in position to succeed as much as possible. And it's not really that hard to understand why people like this would actually gain a following or gain some momentum. And then, one parent sees and says, oh, I took my kid to this guy and, he had a great year. And, they may give credit, maybe not where credit is due, right? Where you're like, well, the kid probably would have had a good year if he had nobody coaching him or if he had, just basic fundamentals, right? And then all of a sudden it's, you're throwing 100 something bucks an hour at these guys. And my sister went through it. My nephew, he's he plays collegiately, and they went through all this stuff with him. So I had seen from afar, Jeff, some of the stuff that you were talking about, and then it really opened my eyes a couple of years ago when I really started following and getting to know you. So I kind of understand how these people have gotten rise, but you've had a devil of a time really trying to push these guys back, and you get accused of all kinds of things. Like they always want to tell you that you're picking on the kids every time you show a video that they are showing themselves to try to demonstrate. And uh, it's just a little strange to me how like you're really looking out for the parents, and in a lot of cases they're the ones who are coming at you the hardest. And by definition, if you're looking out for them, you're kind of looking out for their kids too. And later on we'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you do that you don't publicize. I'll put you on the spot for some good work that I really have appreciated. But like how hard is that fight every day?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I enjoy a lot of it. I don't enjoy all of it, but it's pretty tough. I mean, there's a lot of people that suggest that the only reason I'm doing this is to get likes or friends or whatever. That couldn't be farther from the truth. Um, people need to follow Lillian Martineau and ask her what she thinks of me, and Olivia Pichardo, and some of the girls on social media that I'm encouraging that I've actually met in person, Missy Coombes, people that I've went out of my way to go to a ballpark to meet them and encourage them, and met their parents, and their parents thank me. People don't see that. People don't see that, and I don't really care. I don't need their them to see me do it. I know what I'm doing, and I know the people that I'm friends with that know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I'm doing it to educate parents because I can't believe some of them can't see what we see. That it's so ridiculous, some of this teaching. And it just doesn't make sense to me how you would think that a pool hall owner who was a horrible baseball player admittingly, okay, knows more about how to hit a baseball than a former major leaguer. And there's so many major leaguers on the social media, not just Twitter, but all over, that agree with me. And everything I say, they agree with because they went through it and they know what it takes and they know what it takes. And they see all these people out there like Lil Richie, like, Tragic Ron, love Tragic Ron, like Chaz Pippett. So many of these people that come up with these gimmicks and they're trying to sell their products and that are just, taking advantage of people that have no clue. And that's the thing. It's just like there's no common sense out there when it comes to the baseball instruction. And I just really can't understand why they wouldn't listen to former players.
Well, the one thing that I see that's the tough criticism is, oh, you're just you're going after somebody's livelihood. But to me, that's the whole argument. Like that's the whole argument. If you have somebody who's trying to, just take advantage of people with a business built on a house of cards, and those people that you're taking advantage of are parents who are putting their hard-earned dollars to try to get their kids better, and ostensibly they're kids, right? Then that's a business that I don't want to patronize, and it should be called out. Like if it was anybody else doing it, like people are calling out Luke Oil right now. Don't go to Luke Oil because it's the second biggest Russian oil company, and if you want to support the Ukraine or show throw your support against Russian dollars, then don't go there, right? Like that becomes your choice. But if you're not educated about it, how would you ever really know? And most of the parents that I know um, didn't play in the major leagues. So I have one friend who played in the NFL, but other than that, it's the ones with kids that are playing. I don't know anybody who's played in the major leagues, and they really could use your. It's not just your advice, Jeff. To me, it's your point of view. Now, the one part I do think that would help some people is when you explain, like, okay, this guy's a pool hall owner. How could he know more than a major leaguer? There could be an argument that people could make in a lot of different walks of life that say, well, the best coaches don't weren't always the best player or something like that. I understand the mechanics of what you're saying, but I would like people to be able to hear it from you because the way you say it and the way you explain it makes it more sensible to average Joe or average Jane who's sending their kid to these kinds of people.
Yeah, well, I agree with the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid, because what you see with a lot of these instructors is it's just over complicating things, and they use these big words to try and sound smart. And a lot of times, I'm sitting there going, I'm educated. I got my degree, 4-year degree, and I can barely understand what you're talking about. How's a 12-year-old, who's only playing because he loves the sport, going to understand what you're talking about, supinate and load your scap and release the torsion? And it's like, what are you even talking about? Why are we making it so difficult? And I think that's the biggest thing is they want to act like they know something that nobody else knows. Even though a lot of the things, some of the stuff they teach is good. I mean, you got to load before you hit. Everybody knows that, right? You don't have to load your scap and then when you hit, you fire with your back hip. You don't have to release the torsion. You just fire your back hip. Why does it have to be called release the torsion? And why do you have to supinate? And some of these crazy things that I hear uh, is comical. And I agree. You don't have to. I've always said you don't have. You didn't have to be a great player to be a good coach. And then I had some major league coaches along the way that weren't necessarily great coaches. And I had guys who never made it in pro ball who were good coaches. But just use common sense, okay? And I think most people aren't doing that. And, especially when you see some of the bizarro world teachings that are out there, balls under your arm and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, Come on, folks, use common sense. Now, Lil Richie, Lil Richie is one of my favorite targets. Lil Richie, to my knowledge, has had one player that he's ever worked with that became a good player, and that's Aaron Judge. Now, Aaron Judge was the first round draft pick, already a major leaguer before he worked with Lil Richie. He struggled the first, his first September in the big leagues, which most guys do. And the next year he came back and hit 52 home runs. And ever since he did that, Little Richie created him. And there's not been a public endorsement of Little Richie from Aaron Judge in over 4 years. And so, but he's hitched his wagon to Aaron Judge. And now people, his defenders will say, well, he worked with Aaron Judge. Is like, how come Aaron Judge isn't saying he worked with him? Right? I mean, come on, folks, use some common sense. This guy maybe worked with him because his agent brought him to him 5 years ago because he struggled, and his agent worked with Lil Richie briefly, and then he became a superstar, and now it's all because of Lil Richie.
Jeff, I think you make a great point with the crazy verbiage and the crazy vocabulary and stuff like that with those guys. We see it all the time in finance, right? Like almost you watch like American Greed or whatever else like that. Almost every one of those shows, it's some guy sitting there talking about some scheme you can't understand. I'm a finance guy for 30 years. Like I won't understand half what this guy's talking about. This sort of thing, that sort of thing, and it's by design, right? I mean, that's what makes it so evil. That you're deliberately going out trying to rip people off. When you say with like like a coach, you don't have to be a player and stuff. I mean, I think that the key thing to me, it's one thing if whoever's trying to be a coach, wasn't a good player and stuff like that, and they're teaching the right fundamentals, right? And now they couldn't do it, but they recognize what's successful. And I would say that with the players too, that you guys may not necessarily just saying broadly, right? A great player may not necessarily be a great coach, but he knows what a great coach looks like and what a great coach sounds like, right? Mm-hmm. And when someone else is going out there who is not a great coach and was certainly not a great player and is telling you stuff that almost by definition will not make you a great player, that's where you have to go up in arms, right? That you're literally going and steering people in the opposite direction. You'd be better off if you didn't tell them anything than tell them what you're teaching. Because now you have to unlearn that when they finally get up to a good coach.
Oh, and I have a lot of coaches tell me that they had to fix kids because they got ruined by some hitting guru that convinced their parents to come to him because he had a player who became good. And most of these kids that become exceptional players, they were going to become exceptional anyway because they're going to work at it. They have natural ability, and they just have the it factor, which you can't teach. And I think maybe one of the funniest parts about what I see with a lot of these guys, especially Lil Richie, is that he wants everybody to copy what the greatest players in the game did. Okay, so I played with some great players in my career, a lot of them. And I couldn't do what they did. And I was a major leaguer, so I was pretty good. I mean, if you're a Major League Baseball player, you got to be pretty good. And I could look at Nomar and watch what he did, and I couldn't do what he did. I wasn't able to do I couldn't do what Pudge Rodriguez did, and Juan Gonzalez and Ruben Sierra and Mo. I wish I could. I couldn't hit like Mo and just, Mo's 6'1", 240, and I'm 5'9", 160. If I try to hit like Mo, I'm not going to be successful. But their idea is I only study the greatest players. Why wouldn't I study the greatest? And I'm going to teach these kids to do what the greatest do. Well, you're teaching everybody to hit like Barry Bonds, and to my knowledge, so far there's only been one of him. So when's the next one coming? Is he going to be created in Little Richie's pool hall? No, because Barry Bonds has special attributes that most human beings don't have. Okay, he has great hand-eye coordination, vision, timing, and he made it work for him because he was incredible, right? And there's only been one of him. So you can teach
he didn't copy him.
No.
Yeah. Right.
Barry Bonds didn't even hit like his dad. They had totally different. His dad had his hands down by his waist, right-handed hitter. And Barry Bonds is, different type of hitter. And to say that we're going to teach everybody to hit like Barry Bonds or this, I mean, it's just laughable, to be honest with you.
I'll tell you who could hit like Barry Bonds. Batting stance guy. He's amazing.
Yeah, I like batting stance guy.
Batting stance guy's great.
I think that's how Riz spent his entire time in college, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
He literally could imitate anybody. Once again, he could imitate the stance, not the swing.
not yeah. Well, I mean, I couldn't hit anything.
Not the result, but
I used to do that
that's good.
When I was in the minor leagues and we had some downtime, I would imitate some of my heroes when I played in front of the dugout, and the players would get a kick out of it. I was always, and I could do it because I imitated those guys when I was growing up playing wiffle ball.
Yep.
And if I was the St. Louis Cardinals, which I never was, I was always the Giants, but if I was the St. Louis Cardinals, I would imitate Willie McGee or Jack Clark or whoever's on the team. And my cousin was always the Dodgers, so he'd have to imitate Dusty Baker, his favorite player, or Davey Lopes, or Rick Monday, or Reggie Smith. So we knew those guys' stances, and if they were left-handed, even though we were right-handed and we're playing wiffle ball, we had to bet left-handed for that guy. So we knew all those different guys, their stances. And man, it was so much fun to imitate those guys, and my teammates would crack up.
Well, I'm right-handed, but I could only do the left-handed Willie McGee. I couldn't do him right-handed. Like I could do the left-handed guys probably better. Hal Morris was my favorite to do though.
Oh yeah, he was dancing in the.
Oh yeah, I would just walking and hitting like like slow pitch softball, right? Like
nobody else hit like that, really.
I don't know how he did it. I mean, he hit well. Couldn't hit lefties.
And that's the thing. I mean, you going to teach your son to hit that way? No, but Hal Morris made it work for him. You going to teach your son to hit like Kevin Youkilis? No, but he made it work. You going to teach your son to hit like Craig Counsell? No, but he made it work. So it's, there's not one way to do this. That's the big thing. Is let's stop teaching everybody to do it this one certain way, because if you watch a Major League Baseball game today, if we ever get this lockout resolved, you're not going to see two guys hit the same. So why are we trying to teach all the kids to hit like Barry Bonds?
Because the analytics, right? The analytics want everything to look exactly the same to fit into that system and get the result that they're optimized for.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Which just doesn't. Yeah, it's not reality, right? That's the problem.
Yeah, that's a square peg in a square hole world, and that's just the opposite of baseball, and that's what you're trying to get at the grassroots level, right? Like, how about this part, right? You put more balls in play, and now you have to have more outs made by fielders making plays, right? So fielders at the major league level, and then subsequently all the levels below, have less responsibility right now because there's so many more strikeouts. There's so many more 3 outcomes, right? Now you see the teams that can put pressure on defenses, and instead of them having to field for 15 outs, they have to field 23 outs, right? That becomes a big difference over the course of 2 or 3 games. Your analytics there are going to show you that extra base runner or two that you're getting, or the extra advance, or the errors that are not listed as errors in the box score. Like, those things are going to add up just as quickly and start to make a bigger difference, right?
Absolutely. And it's, having played, Major League Baseball in the infield, I can tell you that strikeouts made my job easy, especially when Pedro was pitching. I just stand out there and look at Nomar over there yawning at shortstop. Man, this is rough. I got like 1 ball the whole game, and we won 3-1. But when you have a more contact style pitcher up there, that's you got to make the plays, man. You got to be in the game, and it puts pressure on you. And when there's a base runner on who might steal a base, or they might hit and run, it's pressure, and that pressure forces guys into mistakes, trying to be fast. And when the guys are just walking, striking out, or hitting a home run, they're not putting any pressure on the defense. And I keep hearing this idea that the fielders are so much better now than they've ever been, and if you hit a ground ball, you're out. Well, I haven't seen it. I mean, there's better fielders now than Ozzie Smith and Omar Vizquel and Roberto Alomar. I don't think so. Not from what I can tell. And the fields are a lot nicer. Okay, the fields are. I mean, they don't have fields now like they had when I played. I mean, in Boston, Joe Mooney was he was the ground screw guy, and our field was terrible. And nothing against Joe Mooney. I just think he didn't have much to work with in terms of the field. But Billy Ripken came to town. Him and Jeff Hewson were my teammates for the Rangers, and I was playing in Boston. They came to town for a series, and Billy goes, "I have a renewed respect for you playing on this garbage field every day." Okay. Now you see the fields are beautiful AstroTurf, most of them, or the grass just looks immaculate. And it didn't used to be that way. So to say that all the infielders are so much better than they've ever been, and any ground ball you hit is an out, is a bunch of garbage.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff, I hark back. I grew up watching the Mets, and always it was Mets versus Cardinals, same division back then, mid 80s or so, and just 100%, right? The fielding, the base running ability of the Cardinals and stuff, and just how much pressure. And again, I think it gets down to the analytics. They don't factor in what you're doing to affect the other side. And like you're saying, like the hit and running and constantly guys in motion all the time, that completely led to guys being out of position, not being able to make the plays, getting out instead of turning two and stuff like that. And I think that system the analytics system, to me, just hasn't caught up to that ability. And me and Rizzo are talking about in the playoffs, right? If it's so bad, how come everyone sits there and does that in the playoffs? Right? No one does in the
They do it differently
right?
in the playoffs.
Everybody's stealing bases, laying stuff down, right? Also, magically that happens in the playoffs.
Right.
Let's
change
changed?
Our strategy during the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, right there, it's evidence that it's BS.
So. By the way, Dawg's there's a fielding conversation, and Dawg's having nightmares of his Mets playing against Keith Hernandez, Tommy Herr, Ozzie Smith, and Oberkfell and Pendleton at third. Like how are you gonna hit it? Like you had to be on the AstroTurf and hit it 9,000 miles an hour just to get it past those guys. I mean, that was when
and the outfield was good too. That's the other irritating part.
Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff.
All right. For those on the video, repping the D today. That's from my Detroit girls, Angela. That was see, I'm using your gift on the air, Ange, and my Detroit girls, who I know are they're nobody's more upset about the lockout than them. Real Tigers fans, great sports fans. My Michelle 1L, Michelle 2Ls, and Angela, they're gonna miss their Tigers. Frito, the lockout, right, from the ex-player's insight. You're pro player, I would imagine, as one would expect. It's an easy stance to have publicly today, because it seems like most out there are just loving, hammering Rob Manfred. But I'll say this: you are consistent, because you have been hammering Rob Manfred for a long time, my friend, a long time, and doing it well.
He deserves it, right?
I mean, I guess he's earned it, but let's hear your elevator pitch on why Rob Manfred sucks. How about that?
I just don't. I really can't think of one positive thing he's done for the game. I really can't. And when I played, I mean, I wasn't a big fan of Bud Selig, but Bud Selig, man, he looks really good right now as a commissioner, and a lot of the rule changes, I think, are an embarrassment to the game. When we had 7-inning games and a guy would throw a no-hitter for 7 innings and it wouldn't count. And then extra innings for putting a man on second base. And some of the rule changes he came up with in the minor leagues, where pitchers have to disengage the rubber to throw to a base. He came up with the idea in the Atlantic League last year. They moved the mound back a foot. They talked about letting guys steal first base. And then here, well, I guess it was yesterday. I think it was yesterday when at the very last moment he came in with the idea of no more shift and a pitch clock in Major League Baseball. So our sport, that for 150 years has never been on the clock, and now all of a sudden we're going to tell pitchers that they only have a certain amount of time to throw the ball, and that's what's missing from the game, is that we have to make it more entertaining. So the reason it's not entertaining is because the pitchers are holding on to the ball too long before they throw it. It's just asinine to me. It's like it's nothing to do with it. And so can you imagine if this rule was in place, which it never will be? I don't believe the players would ever, unless they said, all right, we'll do it 30 seconds between pitches, not 15, because then it wouldn't be a factor. But if you have a pitcher, late in the game, ninth inning in September, when, the pennant's on the line, and this pitcher's looking in, he's shaking off. He's nervous because he knows this next pitch could be the pitch that sends his team to the playoffs or not. And all of a sudden he steps off and the pitch clock goes, ball one. Can you imagine? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, really, this is what we're going to try to do? This is what is going to fix baseball and not make it boring anymore? No, it's all the guys upstairs who never strapped on a jock who played baseball that are telling these players how to, talking to these players about the strategy they should use in their game now. And Rob Manfred, and I posted this a couple times the other day. I hope and pray, I'm sure they won't, because they probably don't have the power to do it. But as part of any agreement with the owners, I wish the players would say Rob Manfred must be replaced by an impartial commissioner, someone that has the players' interest and the owner's interest and the future of our game, the best interest of our game at heart, and not just somebody who's trying to appease his owner bosses and make them as much money as they can possibly make.
That will be a hell of a thing. A lot of the commissioners in the way past, weren't as representative of the owner's views in as much as they were for the health of the game. But now, very clearly, Manfred works for the owners. It would be very interesting to see if they could get that collectively bargained and have both parties agree on commissioner candidates.
Yes. I think it'd be better for the game. We wouldn't have to worry about every 5 years going through this crap. And especially now, what's going on in our world the last 2 years with the pandemic, and now what's going on in Europe. It's like, come on, guys, we need baseball. We need some positive stuff right now. You guys had the opportunity during COVID to end this and be the first major sport to come back, but you blew that. We didn't do that, right? And then we had a shortened season. And then we shortened the draft. And now the draft's still shortened. And we got rid of minor league teams. It's like, if we're trying to grow this game, why are we eliminating stuff? Why are there? So during the draft that had five rounds, which used to be like unlimited rounds, and then it was condensed to like 50 rounds. Okay, it means you're drafting 50 players a year. Okay, 2 years ago they drafted 5 each, and most teams signed no more than 10 players total. 10 players for each organization. Where they used to sign 50 to 80 players each. And so how are we growing the game that way? Are really the only guys who are ever going to make the major leagues top 5 round draft picks? No more underdogs, no more guys that, beat the odds. And I wouldn't have been drafted. I was drafted in the 30th round. Mike Piazza, I'm pretty sure was drafted in the 61st round. He's the greatest hitting catcher in the history of baseball. He would have been drafted by Rob Manfred's new system.
Yeah, I mean, like you're saying, like who's there for the fans, right? I mean, that's the constant worry I have with that. And we talked about on the show that my kids don't watch. They'll never sit down and watch a 9-inning game. No way. They might watch a couple of innings to me going along. They like it. They'll follow the Mets, they'll follow the other teams around and whatnot, but they're not going to watch 9 innings. And if we don't find a way to do it, that will eventually catch up, right? They're e-gaming. They're doing all sorts of other stuff.
There's a lot of
And
options. A lot of
yeah,
options. And sorry to interrupt you, but
yep.
I can barely watch 9 innings. I've been
I was,
watching baseball since I was probably
yep.
8 years old. And now it's hard for me to watch a Major League Baseball game for 9 innings because
Yeah.
I'm just
I mean,
going, and it infuriates me to see guys that just keep swinging for the fences with 2 strikes, and it's like, man, all you had to do is hit a ground ball to shortstop, and you guys would have scored a run. But no, you're trying to hit a 3-run homer, and they're being told that by the guys upstairs. And they're not being told that by baseball men because the baseball men have been removed from the game.
yeah.
That's why. That's why I got Nick Madrigal leading the charge back. He's my guy.
Yeah, I love that guy. I mean, look at that guy. What is he? 5'8", 150 pounds, and he's just a scrapper. And I played against his dad.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
I played against his dad, and it's like, this guy's a good baseball player. He was one of the best college baseball players in the country. Drafted, how are you going to draft a guy 5'7" in the first round? Because he's a baseball player. It didn't matter how big he is. He hits 300 every year, and Joey Gallo's 6'4", 225. Throws 90 miles an hour from the outfield, hits 199 every year.
Madrigal hits 300 in his sleep. I have guaranteed him a batting title, by the way, many times on this show.
Oh, yeah.
Everything we say on this show eventually comes true because we time travel, in case people didn't know that. We got the episodes to prove it. So who would be then that great commissioner, Frito? Who would be somebody besides the Dawg that we could nominate that the owners and the players would both say, all right, she's great, he's great. Let's move forward with this candidate. Let's you got a couple out there that you could think of?
Well, they're never going to agree to a former player because they know the player would side with the players.
Hold on. What about a former player who's also worked as a CEO? What about Jeter?
He's going to side with the players because a lot of people think that he left Miami because he didn't like what was going on with the players.
The players, yeah.
Maybe Chris Young, the Rangers GM. He worked he worked for the commissioner's office. He played in the major leagues. He went to Princeton. An incredibly smart guy. You could see him as somebody who would be unbiased. So I don't know. I don't know that there's a perfect candidate. I just know that the guy doing it right now is probably the worst candidate to do it. So,
well, what we like to do is if we have the person there, right, and we think that the position could be filled better, what better way to do it than to start throwing out suggestions? Chris Young is a brilliant call right off the top of your head, by the way. And what our second coach Scott Bradley mentioned, by the way, because he played for Coach Bradley there. And of course, if you don't know, Scott Bradley, the longtime coach, now 23rd or 24th year Princeton, former Major League catcher, caught Randy Johnson's first no-hitter and has been a guest on the show. And Dawg, by the way, maybe we'll be headed down to Princeton for a show for one of these times with Coach.
Love that.
So. And his father is one of the best veterans of the day ever. War hero.
Oh, yeah.
Extraordinaire.
Yeah. Frozen Amazing. Chosen, hero.
Tremendous.
I heard that. I'm like, oh, my God.
That's like royalty. Yeah. Forget about you.
Yeah, exactly. That's a whole
Forget about
level.
Your son played in the major leagues and coaches, and your other son has coached the U.S. national soccer team, and your other son is, a great sports writer who had his own company. Like, what about the dad? Holy crap. Dude, that's a hell of a resume. Sorry for the digression, but we have a lot of respect for Coach Bradley, and I think that he would probably say, I think he'd back you up, Frito. Like, I think maybe we got to start the movement as Chris Young for commissioner here. The Rangers might not like that because they got him, as their GM, right? But I don't know.
I mean, there's got to be somebody out there that. That can listen to the owner's side and listen to the player's side and say, all right, we're not that far apart. Let's get this together in the best interest of baseball. Yeah. and let's come to an agreement. And it doesn't have to be one side wins and one side loses. There's so much money to go around. Let's just, let calmer heads prevail, and let's come to an agreement, and let's get the game going, because not just our country, but this is a worldwide sport now. The world needs it. We need some good stuff to happen, man. I'm sick of we're all sick and tired of the COVID crap, and now
Being sick and tired.
yeah, and unfortunately, the horrible things that are happening in Ukraine right now. It's just terrible. We need some good stuff to happen.
Now, Frito, you posted a picture the other day of your grandmother in front of Yankee Stadium, and I believe you said she emigrated from Ukraine. Is that, did I? Oh, no, Latvia. From
Latvia.
Riga? Okay.
Latvia, Riga, Latvia. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So,
crazy. She, my grandmother, when she was just turning 18, had a boyfriend in Latvia, and they were supposed to go on a ship together to America. And she was delayed and missed the ship. The ship sailed without her and sunk in the ocean, and everybody died.
Wow.
Okay. Short time after that, she got on another ship and came to America. And I found this out like 2 or 3 days ago from my mom and my aunt, is that she actually got married on the ship, okay, to a guy named, I think, Milton was his name, okay? Apparently Milton married like every woman on the ship, because it's bad luck, apparently, to have unmarried women on a ship. So Milton married all these women that were on the ship, and then once they got to America, I don't really know exactly, what happened, but apparently they weren't married anymore. But they did that just so these women could go from Latvia to America, and they were escaping Russia because their country was being ruled. They were part of Russia at the time, yep. And they didn't want to be ruled by the Russian people. And thank goodness she came to America, and she ended up meeting my grandfather in Boston. Then they moved to California, and that's where I was born, in California. And when I was in, I think, 6th grade, I was living with my mom and stepdad. My stepdad and he was not a very nice guy. And so I moved out and moved in with my grandparents and lived with them for 3 years. We didn't have a car. Everywhere we went, we walked. We had 2 paper routes, and lived with them. And then eventually my grandfather got sick and was bedridden, and my aunt and uncle moved us to Oklahoma. 9 of us moved. My aunt and uncle, Chess, my 4 cousins, all girls, me, my grandmother and grandfather moved from Hayward, California to Panama, Oklahoma in a U-Haul and a Dodge pickup, 1,800 miles, and in a house that was about, I would guess, 1,200 square feet with 1 bathroom.
A little culture shock, I would imagine, from California to
like,
Oklahoma.
Where am I at? What did I just do? And the first month, I was like, I don't know if I can do this, but I ended up loving it. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Wow.
He gets to the majors. Hey, Frito, I think you need to walk more. He's like, nope, did that when I was a kid. Walked everywhere. Swing it away, baby. Just swing it away. Right. That pitch is close. I'm hitting it.
Yeah, and the kids today are like, yeah, I used to walk to school, whatever. Like, no, I really did walk to school. It was 2 miles each way.
Wow.
And I walked to school from in 10th grade and 11th grade. I'd walk 2 miles to school and 2 miles home every day.
There you go.
Yeah, on purpose, so it was an intentional walk.
Yeah. Nobody was nobody was pitching around me when I played. I think I probably had 5 intentional walks in my career, and I don't really know why, but
yeah, whatever. You swung away like everybody's like, who's this Frito guy? Is he from San Pedro de Macorís? Is he trying to hit his way off the island? Baby, what's going on with this guy?
You can't walk off the island, man. You gotta swing.
Right.
Kevin Mitchell, right, Dog? What did he say? Only the postman walks.
Exactly.
Yeah, except well, that guy could hit everything. My God, they talk about Vlad Guerrero, they forget about Kevin Mitchell. That guy hit everything.
He was
Yeah, I
sick.
was his teammate in Boston, and I think 2000, maybe 99 or 2000.
Oh wow.
We had like a slow
That's-
pitch softball team. We had like Conseco, Kevin Mitchell, Bo Vaughn. It's like, you guys don't want to have a brawl with us, I promise you.
Oh my God, that was yeah. You fit in well with that team.
Oh yeah,
You had the skill set that nobody else had, right?
that's right. Yeah, they couldn't do what I did. They didn't know
By
how
the
to
way,
bunt. They didn't know how to bunt.
I know because they never had to.
That's right.
You want Bo Vaughn to bunt? Forget it. He hasn't bunted since he was 4 years old, probably.
That's right.
It is funny though that you mentioned like the Nomar stance, because in my final year of competitive fast pitch softball, I was rocking with the Nomar stance. I'm like, I'm imitating this guy. I did like the slamming the toes down and everything, and I did get the game-winning hit in the clinching game of the World Series.
Wow.
JCCP 2003 champs, baby.
Nice.
Hold up the trophy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can we tell Teacherman? Maybe he can claim credit for you.
Let me tell you something. That swing was as level as you ever were going to get it for me. I was not trying to hit the ball anywhere. It was a line drive right over the shortstop's head and into left field, and I almost broke my hand high-fiving our ridiculous center fielder who was coaching first, and he was a center fielder for like North Carolina, and he was just like so much better than everybody else, which makes me like wonder, these you pro guys, man, forget it. It's like people just have no idea,
Yeah.
like how good you have to be to play pro ball. It's
Yeah.
insane. They got
Well,
no clue.
They talk about it, right? Like if it's like the greatest player in your town, like might play D1, like the greatest player your town's ever seen will be in the pros, and Lord, I mean, the MLB is a whole nother level from there. But
Yeah, forget
that
Yeah.
always that's one of the things that gets me the most fired up about a lot of these people on social media is they don't understand that part of it is and I'm not talking about me, but there's been, I think, just over 20,000 guys in the history of the game that played in the major leagues, and they don't realize that even the 25th man on the roster is
like the best guy ever.
better than anybody you ever saw play baseball in your life. And you're going to call this guy a scrub or a Judy or whatever when you weren't even good in high school. So just shut up. Your opinion means nothing, because obviously to play at that level, you have to have this certain ability that not most human beings have. And why it happens to some guys and not others, I don't know, but just quit talking bad about Major League Baseball players.
I'll tell you, I was just telling this story the other day, and you actually had a proclivity for hitting the highest level pitchers well, like the big unit and Clemens, right? Like you did well against them for your career. So I've been to a million baseball games, cover games, been in MLB locker rooms, not the way you were in MLB locker rooms, but hey, I made it as a reporter, and all levels of baseball, been there, right there, close, and one time in the old Yankee Stadium, my friend calls me up. He's like, "Hey, I got tickets to the Yankee game, but why don't you just come meet me there?" I'm like, "Okay." I show up, and it's the old Yankee Stadium. It's the fourth row behind home plate. Now, I've never actually like I've sat pretty close, but like at the old Yankee Stadium, and Frito, you probably remember this, right? The way that the backstop was, it's downhill, which but what most people don't probably realize, having never sat there, is like the first four rows are also downhill in the old Yankee Stadium, and then like row 5 they start to go up. So I'm like I'm lower than the pitcher's mound. Eye level is about home plate, and I'm just to the third base side, and Clemens is pitching that night, so it's probably like 99 or something like that. Now again, I've seen a million baseball games. I couldn't see the ball when he was throwing it. I'm like, how the hell could you hit that? And I just don't understand how people don't have an appreciation for it. On a different level, I've covered a lot of mixed martial arts. And the thing that people don't have a feel for there is how hard and fast even the bad people hit. And, like when somebody punches somebody and there's blood flying onto your computer or notes, like they have, you call anybody who gets into a cage and gets it locked behind them they're different. They're special. I'm never going to say anything bad about them ever because it's just different. The average person doesn't get the understanding of that until they really get to see it up close. And then when they do, generally their appreciation for it grows.
Yeah, and I think what people one of the things they don't understand, obviously, is the speed of the game. And they see major leaguers performing, and major leaguers make it look easy. Yeah. Well, it's not easy, but because these are the best at it, it looks easy. So you think you could do it. Well, it can't be that hard, but you don't understand how fast everything is happening. You can't tell from your couch. You can't tell from the stands. But when you step on that field, I know in my first game in the big leagues, like the first time there was a double play ball, and I went to turn it, and Mark Whitten was about 2 feet from me. And I'm like, how did he get here so fast? Like they weren't this fast in the minor leagues. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to turn it up a notch because, this is just the same game I played my whole life. And the day before I was in AAA playing, and the runner was 10 feet from second base. And now the day later, this dude is on me on a routine ground ball, and he's 6'4", 220 pounds, about to take my knees out. So you got to learn pretty quick, man. And if you don't, you won't stay there. And that's the thing. It's like a lot of guys make the major leagues and don't stay there for long. The key is to stay there as long as you can. And it's easier said than done.
So your first double play ball, you have to turn it, and the guy coming from first to second is one of the most shredded guys like ever in baseball history. That dude was a mountain, Mark Whitten. Yep. He was he was NFL type bodied Mark Whitten.
Yeah, and to give you the full story, the first time I got on base, I led off the game and I walked on 4 pitches, and I forget who was hitting behind me, but he had a double play ball, just shortstop. And I took out the second baseman, Baerga, and knocked him on the ground because we used to be allowed to do that. And so I went back to the dugout, everybody's high-fiving, but I didn't know what I just did. And so now, they know I'm a rookie. The other team does, the Indians. And so the first double play ball, they're going to try and get me back for getting Baerga. And so he almost, I actually one-hopped the throw to first and turn the double play. A couple innings later, Albert Bell's on first base. And it's a double play. Yeah. I didn't even really know who Albert Bell was, right? And so double play ball, third base to me. I go to throw it, and I go to turn, and he is not sliding.
Oh, good heavens!
He's running, and he never slides. He runs straight through the base, and I'm like, go to throw it, and I'm like, oh crap, and I have to throw over the top of him.
Like trying to throw over a tree.
Yeah, and it nicks. Palmeiro tries to stay on the base, and the ball nicks off the top of his glove and goes in the dugout. I got a throwing error, but they didn't call interference or anything. He just never even attempted to slide. But that's because I took out Baerga the first time I was on base.
Yeah.
Oh boy! So you're turning double plays, and like Mark Whitten and Albert Bell are the first 2 guys you're facing. Neither guy, by the way, to this day has ever been in a good mood about anything ever.
No, that was my first game.
God.
And pitching for us that first game I played for the Rangers was Nolan Ryan.
Wow.
Yeah. And I made an error behind Nolan Ryan my first game in the big leagues.
And Nolan Ryan still hasn't talked to him to this day.
Yeah. I did get 2 hits. I went 2 for 3, scored 3 runs, and was actually player of the game my first game in the majors.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it was just all downhill after that.
Meanwhile, Nolan Ryan went 9 on 173 pitches, struck out 14, walked 7, and allowed 3 hits, and he wasn't player of the game. That's why I still won't talk to Frito. But you got the jersey.
Right.
You got the wow. We got some good stories. That's just from game 1. Holy Toledo.
Yeah.
What's so did anybody how long did it take before somebody really took you out at second, turning the double play or attempting to turn the double play? Did anybody ever really clip you? Like for injury, not just hurt?
I still remember when Paul Molitor slid into me, and just the last second he kind of extended his foot, and the bottom of the cleats were that real hard like plastic, and he got me right in the shin. I still can feel it today when he did that. Another time,
I know Molitor was such a jerk.
that's just the way we played, man. I was going after them too, and Kurt Gibson one time was on first base, and so when certain guys are on base, okay, they have this reputation that they're going to come get you.
Yeah.
Right. And so Kurt Gibson, we all know he's a football player mentality, tough guy. If there's a double play ball, he's going to try to hurt somebody. And he's coming. It's a ground ball to Benji Gill, and Benji Gill kind of bobbles it and throws it to first base. And I'm standing at second and kind of get out of the way. Gibson sounds like a freight train running in there and slides and pops up and looks at me. And I'm a rookie, right? He looks at me and he goes, "He did you right there." And I said, "I'd have turned it anyway." And I turned and walked away. I never actually talked to him about it later, but that's just kind of, I had to have, being my size, I kind of had to have this
little chip
on my shoulder, this little guy complex or whatever. But I was confident in my ability, but I couldn't let them know that I knew I was inferior to the rest of you athletically. I just had to pretend like I was on the equal playing field, even though I knew I wasn't.
It's so funny that you brought up Gibby, because I was just thinking about this before, like when I was doing my show prep and just thinking about a lot of different things around baseball, but the shift, right? Like Gibby was a guy who was a pull hitter, but the best possibly bunter of his era. He could bunt. He could put that ball wherever he wanted. If he wanted to drag it, he would drag it. If he wanted to put it right on the dirt between the line and the grass, he could do it. I watched him do it over and over. You watched him do it on the field, right, against you. If they tried to shift it, like, how would they play that guy today? Like, isn't he the perfect example? Like, every time they shifted him, he would just bunt, right? At that point, would he not?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know why guys don't do it today. Apparently, singles aren't important anymore, and strikeouts don't matter. But there was a lot of guys. I mean, the best bunter I believe I ever saw play was either Rod Carew or Brett Butler.
Oh,
yeah.
But
he was amazing.
But I played with Juan Pierre, who was a great bunter.
Oh, man,
and
awesome.
Juan Pierre would use his whole round in batting practice for bunting. You would never see that today. You get 7 or 8 swings and everybody's taking their swings and trying to hit homers and BP, and Juan Pierre would bunt 8 times. You know what?
Carew, remember?
He was ready to bunt at any time, and it didn't matter. He was ready to do it because his goal was to get on first base.
Yeah.
You talk about before how baseball, hitting wise, right, is unique to the player, and it's a losing philosophy to try to have everybody imitate one swing. How about Carew bunting? Carew bunted not with not with the finger. He kept both hands around the bat when he bunted, if I remember correctly. Is that am I remembering correctly?
And he would just lay his bat back, and then pitcher would throw, and he'd just go doink right there. And if he got it down, he had no chance to get him.
I know. Even later in his career, when he was, he was still pretty fast actually all the way through. But man, he was unbelievable. I love seeing him on Twitter. Isn't that great? Did you get the follow from him, by the way?
No, not yet. Not yet. I'm still working, man. I'm trying. I've tried to reach out to a lot of guys, and I don't know that they want to see a lot of the knuckleheads that comment on my stuff. So I don't know if that's part of the reason I haven't gotten it, but I'll keep reaching out because I think guys like Rod Carew and Wade Boggs and Mike Piazza and Pudge and all the major leaguers that are on Twitter, man, if we could get them behind this save the game thing, I think we can get the audience that we need with Major League Baseball.
The one who Dawg and I love is Ferguson Jenkins on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Love Ferguson Jenkins. Oh, it's just amazing to
Box is pretty good too. I gotta say.
Yeah,
I didn't love him when he played, but he's good on Twitter.
Now Will Clark's on there.
I respect him on though.
You've seen Will Clark?
Yeah, Will is good too.
Yeah.
Another one I didn't like when he played, but respect.
Will Clark is. I've talked to Will.
He seems like a great dude.
He's been on my podcast, and he is all about everything we're talking about. But unfortunately, he can't really comment because he's still employed by the Giants. And a lot of guys that are affiliated with their organizations, probably to keep that paycheck coming in, can't really speak out. So.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. I mean, you got to understand people.
I don't ask them to either. I just say, hey, if you can, we'd love your support. If not, I understand. But I know all of these guys feel the same way we do about all this stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
Will's talked to me about the shift. Will's talked to me about the guy in AA, middle infielder that didn't know what the signs were from the catcher. AA. He's like, so what are you doing on this pitch? Because I don't know. I don't know what the signs are. He's like, you're in AA and you don't know what the signs are? And that's where our game is.
Wow. I mean, that's the thing. Like people pointed out, like why they don't beat the shift. Like flat out major leaguers who can't bunt and can't hit the other way.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I'm like, I don't know what's scarier. Like, do they think that, or the fact that it might actually be true?
No, I think they can. I think they just don't try.
Don't want to.
And you look at who's getting paid nowadays. It's guys who, strike out a lot of guys and guys who hit home runs. Yeah. One of my favorite players is the kid for the Angels, Fletcher.
I love him.
He just hits like 290, 300 every year, and doesn't try and he's a great situational hitter, and those type of players are winning ball players in my mind because he's going to do what it takes. When a runner's on second base and no outs, he's not going to give himself up, but he's going to try and drive the ball the other way to at least move the runner. So Mike Trout or whoever's hitting behind him has an easy RBI situation. And now you'll see a leadoff double in a game, and you'll see the next three guys strike out. Well, I mean, if you're hitting if you're 2, 3, and 4 guys can't make contact in a game, unless they're facing Jacob deGrom or one of the top starters in the league, one of those dudes should be able to make contact, or why are they hitting in the top 4 of the lineup?
Yep.
Let's face it, David Fletcher, Frito 2.0 right there. Middle infield, tough guy. He might be a little better at the shortstop spot, actually. He's pretty good. He's a pretty good shortstop. I think I like him at short.
Yeah, and I had a hard time going to the left side of the infield because I just had a below average arm my whole life, and probably got it to maybe average by playing long toss 3 or 4 days a week for 15 years. By the end of my career, I think it was average to maybe slightly above average, but playing on the left side of the infield was difficult for me because I had to do everything right, to get a routine out from that side of the field.
and for the rest of us, that means if you were playing catch with Jeff Frye, your hand would hurt. That's for the
Not
rest of us.
anymore. Not anymore.
Well, the first throw.
First throw.
First throw's gonna come like a rocket.
Yeah.
No. And some of the guys I played with, like Nomar had a rocket,
Oh man.
cannon for an arm, and Benji Gill had a cannon for an arm, and a lot of the guys I played with just had those natural arms, and I believe you can improve yours because I know I did mine. I improved it, but I couldn't go from a below average arm to a above average arm. I think you're born with that. You either have it or you don't. So guys, I know there's all this velocity training and stuff now for these young kids, and it's like, you're not gonna teach a guy who throws 82 to throw 97. It ain't happening.
Well, the guy who you were,
that's it.
the guy who you were protecting yourself against on your first major league double play turn, Mark Whitten, that guy had an arm.
Yeah, he had a cannon.
Oh my God, he was absurd.
He had like a 80 arm.
Oh, if there was an 81, he would have had that.
Yeah.
If there was, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, and he was born with that. He didn't develop that by going to driveline and throwing heavy balls. He was born with that. And a lot of guys that you just know, like a lot of guys, just the ball jumps off their bat different than the rest of us. And they might be even the same size as me, but somehow when they hit it, it makes a different sound than when I hit it. It's not like I'm doing something wrong. It's just they have this gift that you can't teach.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand that. That's why the whole argument of teaching everybody to do what the best players do is laughable to me, because you can't just teach a Jeff Frye to hit like Barry Bonds. It wouldn't work for me.
So let's talk about, now that we have the legend Missy Coombes, she's monitoring us on the live stream. Let's talk a little bit in our closing segment. Dawg, I think we could pass on Die Hard Dads for today. Let's talk a little, Frito behind the scenes. You had a chance to meet Missy and some of our young teenage female baseball players, Lillian, Martineau, Olivia, Pichardo, down when they came by you in Texas a few months ago. But I know that behind the scenes, you're doing a lot of work, and you've made yourself available to a lot of these kids who are looking for a little guidance here and there. And I want to call you out on that for doing more than the right thing, because what I'm trying to say is you're not just somebody who's sitting out there and throwing stuff out there. You're living it 24/7. You practice what you preach. It's not some BS thing that you're just throwing out there. Tell us a little bit about your experience. We had Missy on actually after you were down there, but tell us a little bit about your experience meeting those three when they came by you in Texas.
Yeah, actually, Missy was texting me about an hour ago, and I told her I would respond to her because I was headed home to do a podcast. So I've through social media, I've met Missy Coombes and Lillian Martineau and Olivia Pichardo. I actually met, I think, in person before I met her, talked to her on social media. But so Lillian's dad reached out to me one time and asked if I would do a Zoom meeting with his team. He had Lillian's team, I think they were probably 14 years old, and he calls them the L7s, and they got sick of the select crap, and he was starting his own team. So he wanted to know if I would do a Zoom with them. And I guess it was probably a year and a half ago. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. We did like an hour-long Zoom, got to meet them and talk to the players a little bit, give them a little advice and stuff like that. And I guess it was probably about 3 or 4 months ago, Lillian was coming to Texas, to Arlington, for this Major League Baseball sponsored event where they brought like the top 35 girls high school baseball players in the country to play like a weekend series and have training and stuff. So I found out about it, and I went over there and met Missy, met Lillian's mom, and got to meet Lil. I was so excited to meet Lillian. Oh my God, I was nervous. This little girl I've been talking to, and what an inspiration she is.
Yeah.
And then I got to meet Olivia Pichardo and Olivia's mom, and it was just really cool to. And then Elizabeth Ben, who was actually working for the commissioner's office, just got hired by a Major League Baseball team, and it was just really cool because I think it's unfair that girls have to give up baseball when they get to college. I don't think it's fair. I think that they should create baseball in college for girls. Because as much as I want Lillian to play college baseball and however far she can go, it's just going to be difficult when she gets to college to compete against boys. The boys are bigger and stronger. And I don't think it's fair that girls have to make a decision to give up baseball, which they love more than softball, a lot of them, just to get a scholarship in college. And I think there's a way to make it happen where we can get girls baseball in college and give these girls an opportunity to play the game they love and get an education. And it'll be entertaining. I think the fans would love it. And I think the girls deserve it. And I don't think it's fair that they have to resort to softball because they're girls.
It would be interesting if we could get the footprint a little bit bigger. I see a little bit of it with my daughter as an ice hockey player. And, you know, for her high school, she has to play with boys. But for her club teams, she could play with girls. So in that respect, it's a little more advanced than baseball is. But baseball is definitely more difficult because a lot of the girls are just steered towards softball and they're steered there early. It's a little, it's not apples to apples, I'll say that. But yeah, I think it would be exciting, and there really is no reason why they shouldn't be able to play. And it would be great if more girls were playing the hard ball. My daughter plays, you know, she plays softball. Baseball's not her thing. Like she didn't, you know, she just played softball from the time she was young, so she's not like kind of in that group. But I keep saying, I'm like, we got to go hang out with Lillian for a weekend because your softball skills will probably sharpen up real quick if you're hanging out with, if you could hang with Lily for a weekend, you'll probably be you know, on the parabola of up when you join back with your softball team.
Yeah, and I know, in my opinion, the baseball swing and the softball swing are a little bit different. But if Lillian's facing, you know, boys that are throwing, you know, 80 miles an hour to 85 miles an hour, and she can hit a baseball that's this big, what's going to happen when she gets to hit a softball with a lighter bat? You know, I think it'll be easier for her having played baseball as long as she has. But I just think that the girls should be allowed to play baseball. I don't see why they're not. And last year I watched the college softball World Series. Man, it was incredible. I loved it. It's like, what I think girls baseball would be the same. You know, everybody loves the college World Series in baseball for the boys. I think they would love the girls doing that too.
Yeah, and I think you'd see a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. Bunts, hit and runs, you know, unit to unit ball, taking the extra base, because you probably, if they were playing it on the same fields, right, you'd see less desire to always try to hit the ball over the wall, right? Because if you're Jeff Frye, right, you made it in the majors because you didn't try to hit home runs. You got a few, but if you were trying to hit home runs, you never would have made it, right?
Never. I never would have had a chance.
It would be exciting. Maybe that's what we need. So we need Chris Young as commissioner and girls college baseball. That's it. We solved it. We did it in one show.
Done.
Yeah. And a new commissioner in baseball.
There you go.
Yeah, Chris Young.
Oh, yeah. As long as Rob Manfred's not involved in any manner, I think we'll be better off.
Guys, 6'10", you going to talk back to him? Walks in the room.
Yeah.
We're going to do this. Sounds
and
good,
he's
Chris.
a very nice guy. I've met him a few times. Great guy.
So
Scott Bradley he told a great story about him on here. He was talking about how Chris Young was facing the young Marlin team, and they were giving him a scouting report, and they said, don't throw your fastball because that's all these guys could hit. Just throw everything like off speed or curveballs. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, and he went out and he threw his fastball, which even though he was 6'10", he wasn't one of these guys that was like breaking the radar gun. Like,
he threw about 90 max.
Yeah,
max,
yeah. And he threw his fastball, and all he did was throw it up in the zone. And he pitched like a complete game. He threw all but 3 fastballs, and he like shut them out or one. He's like, "Yeah, I'm just throwing all fastballs today. Forget about you. I'm just gonna elevate them in the zone. It doesn't matter how fast." Like, but that goes back. Hitters and pitchers sometimes don't always agree, but a lot of the ones from, our generation there that are on Twitter will talk over and over. The pitching version of what we've talked about here is learn how to pitch, right? Don't worry about velocity. Yeah, sure, it helps, but learn how to pitch and worry about location, and you'll be good. So Chris Young proved it in that
have to
game.
let my dog out.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
from which way we wrap up normally.
That's usually the way we wrap up with
Diamond Dog. It's time to walk the Diamond Dog.
Yeah, it's time to walk the Diamond Dog.
Yeah.
So why don't we do it there? I'll just do the wrap right here, and we'll be good. So follow Jeff at the letter 3 the number J Frye JFRYE on Twitter. It's a must follow, and find him on Instagram, Facebook. The hashtags you want to follow at Frito's Army.
Join the Frito's Army.
Are hashtag Frito's Army, hashtag SheGone, and the website savethegameus.com. Get in there on that, and you'll be involved with Jeff's efforts, and you'll have a little bit better idea of what he's trying to do to save the game. It's put up or shut up, and he's putting up. The rest of it at DiamondDiehards.com, everywhere on social media, and you can follow the dog at Jeff Healy 8. That's the number 8 on Twitter. Support for this podcast is coming from FMSgraphics.com. FMSgraphics.com, a family-run, family-owned business for the last 50 years. All your printing and promotional needs can be taken care of with one click on FMSgraphics.com. FMSgraphics.com, supporting Diamond Diehards. And if you're in the Bergen and Passaic County area in North Jersey, go to Big Ed's Car Wash. Tell him Diamond Diehards sent you. You won't be disappointed. He's got a 118-foot tunnel, the longest that you're going to see in these parts. And he does everything clean and green. Big Ed's Car Wash, Fair Lawn, New Jersey, if you're in the Bergen and Passaic County areas. And as the weather continues to get nice, you definitely want to give Big Ed a visit. That is going to do it for a wonderful show. We thank you, Frito, for coming on, sharing your knowledge, and so many great stories, and look forward to having you back soon. The dog, once again, great job. If you're watching, you see he's in the doghouse. That's like a thing, right? So dog is in the doghouse, and he's going to go walk the Diamond Dog now. That will do it for a wonderful show. For our wonderful guest, Jeff Frye, and the dog, Jeff Healy. This is Joe Rizzo. Diamond Diehards is out.